Title: The Pines Remember Everything. They always said no one really leaves Pine Hollow, not in any way that counts. Sure, people pack up their cars, chase jobs, chase dreams, chase escape. Some go to college, others disappear into cities, chasing some blurry version of themselves they think they left behind. But the truth is, Pine Hollow keeps a piece of everyone. It's like the soil remembers. Like the trees don't let go. I used to think that was just old town folklore, the kind of thing you tell kids to keep them from running too far into the woods or asking too many questions. I didn't think it was real. I do now. Because after what I saw, after what followed me out of those trees, I know Pine Hollow isn't just a place. It's a trap that waits, watches, and when it remembers you, it calls you back. I hadn't been home in almost 15 years. Left the day after graduation and swore I'd never come back. My mom stayed, of course, said she had roots in Pine Hollow too deep to cut. I think part of her believed she was protecting something by staying, maybe even me. We talked every so often. Less and less as time went on. Then a few months ago, I got a letter. A real one. Not an email, not a voicemail, not even a text. Just a plain white envelope, no return address. My name on the front in her handwriting, which I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a single sentence scrawled in pen: "Luke, you need to come home. They're starting to remember." That was it. No signature. No explanation. But the handwriting was unmistakable. My mom always looped her L's too high and slanted her T's like they were trying to run off the page. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was some kind of prank, some twisted joke. But deep down, I knew better. I knew something was wrong. And despite everything in me that screamed not to go back, I packed my things and drove 16 hours straight to the edge of that forgotten place. Pine Hollow looked exactly the same, and yet completely wrong. The town sign was still crooked. The gas station still had that half-burnt-out open sign buzzing like a lazy fly. I pulled in for gas and immediately felt it, the way the air clung too thick around the skin, like humidity laced with memory. Everything looked frozen, like a picture someone forgot to finish painting. The guy behind the counter didn't recognize me at first. Or maybe he did. He stared too long. His eyes flickered like he was searching for a name he used to know. I paid in cash. Didn't say much. On the drive through town, I passed the old diner. Still there, still sun-bleached, still smelled like fried grease even through the closed window. I saw Mrs. Hanley through the window. She used to babysit Jonah and me. She was older, thinner. Looked right at me and didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just watched. That was the first time I realized no one was saying his name. Jonah. Jonah Archer was my best friend. He vanished the summer before our senior year. We were out at Hollow Creek, past curfew, tossing rocks, joking around like idiots. He was behind me one second. I remember the sound of his laugh echoing off the water, and the next, he was gone. No splash. No scream. Just, gone. I ran all the way to town like the devil was behind me. They searched the woods for days. Dogs. Volunteers. Flashlights combing the trees at night like little floating stars. Nothing. The sheriff said he probably ran off. But no one really believed that. Not even the sheriff. Especially not me. My old house was worse than I remembered. The porch sagged more. The shutters were gone. The trees in the yard leaned too close, like they were eavesdropping. My mom opened the door before I even knocked. Her hair was whiter than I remembered, her face more drawn, but her eyes were the same sharp, tired, watchful. She looked at me like she'd been expecting me and also like she wished I hadn't come. She didn't hug me. Just stepped aside and whispered, "We don't have much time." Inside, the house smelled like old wood and something else like sage, maybe, or dried flowers. The living room was cluttered with candles, books stacked in messy towers, and dozens of wind chimes that weren't there when I was a kid. But none of them moved. Not a single sound. My mom brewed tea in silence. I sat across from her and tried to pretend things were normal, but I could see the edge in her movements. Like she was listening for something that hadn't arrived yet. She started talking in circles. About dreams she couldn't shake. About people seeing things in reflections that didn't belong to them. About how the forest had started whispering names again. I asked her straight out, was this about Jonah? She didn't answer. Just got up and came back with an old shoebox. Inside was a single cassette tape. "It's from Jonah," she said. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, but she was dead serious. "That's not possible," I told her. My voice sounded hollow even to me. She nodded. "They only think he's gone," she said. "But some part of him is still here. And now they're starting to remember." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the old floorboards, stared at familiar cracks in the ceiling, and finally sat at the ancient tape player in the hallway and hit play. Static filled the air, at first the kind of white noise that raises your hackles. And then, beneath it, Jonah's voice. "Luke," he said. "If you're hearing this, it means your mom kept her promise. I don't know where I am exactly. I don't think it's a place with a name. But it's not a dream. It's not death. The town, the forest, they're alive. They remember things we're made to forget. And now they're remembering me." His voice cracked. He sounded scared. Like he hadn't slept in years. He said he'd found something, a trail behind Hollow Creek, one that didn't exist on any map. He said it only shows up at midnight, and even then, only if you already believe it's there. He followed it. Said it led deeper into the woods than should be been possible. Said the deeper you went, the less real things felt. "I saw people I knew were dead," he said. "A cabin that wasn't always in the same place. A voice that wasn't a voice, but still spoke inside your head. Luke, you'll see it too. You're meant to. We all are. That's how it spreads." I sat there for a long time after the tape ended, holding it in my lap like it might bite me. The voice on that recording was undeniably Jonah. I knew the way he pronounced certain words. The way he stuttered when he was scared. It was him. But it couldn't be. Except. I'd always wondered. I never believed he just ran away. I should ve burned the tape. Should ve left town right then. But I didn't. I grabbed a flashlight, drove out to Hollow Creek, and parked where the old trailhead used to be. The moon was full, casting silver light through the treetops. The woods were too quiet, no owls, no bugs, no wind. Just breathless stillness. I waited. And just like Jonah said, the trail appeared. It wasn't a normal path. Not dirt. Not grass. It looked like it was made of ash. Pale, curling in strange, impossible patterns that didn't match the terrain. I stepped onto it, and everything changed. The air thickened. The smell of pine grew sharp, acidic. The trees leaned back, and I swear I felt something watching from the branches. The trail wound deeper than I remembered the woods going. Hours seemed to pass. Time was wrong out there. I felt like I was moving, but the world moved around me instead. Eventually, I reached a clearing where the trees grew thinner and the light dimmed, even though the moon was high. And there it was. The cabin. It wasn't abandoned. It wasn't even old. It looked wrong. Too clean. Too symmetrical. Like someone had built it from a memory, not wood. No windows. One door. And silence so deep it pressed against your skull. I stepped inside. The floorboards didn't creak. There was no dust. Just a single chair in the center of the room, a full-length mirror, and a man sitting with his back to me. He looked exactly like me. Same shoulders. Same haircut. Same scar on the back of the neck from when I fell off my bike in 3rd grade. He stood up. Turned around. Smiled. "You're late," he said. In my voice. I didn't scream. I didn't speak. I turned and ran. The woods howled around me, not with sound, but with memory. Like every branch remembered me, every leaf whispered old secrets. I didn't stop until I reached my car. And in the glass, just behind my reflection, the forest was smiling. I didn't know trees could do that. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in my old bedroom with the door locked, a chair shoved under the knob like that would make any damn difference. The room hadn't changed much, same posters peeling on the wall, same stains on the carpet, same dent in the drywall from the time I punched it during a fight with my mom. But it felt colder now, like the walls had been waiting for me, and now that I was back, they could exhale. I tried to tell myself I imagined it, the man who looked like me, the cabin, the smiling forest. But the trail of ash was still on the soles of my boots. And my reflection, it hadn't looked quite right since. Like it blinked a second too late. Like it was learning. I tried to ask my mom about the cabin, but she was already 2 steps ahead of me. She sat at the kitchen table the next morning, eyes rimmed red, hands shaking around her teacup. She didn't ask if I found it, she knew. She only asked one thing: did it speak your name? I nodded. I didn't tell her about the reflection. Or the smile. Or how I hadn't looked in a mirror since. She didn't press. Just muttered something like, "It's too soon, they're speeding it up." And vanished into her garden out back. I followed her once. Watched from the window as she knelt among overgrown herbs and scattered salt in small circles around the yard, whispering to the wind. My mother had always been a little strange, but this was something else. She was scared. The kind of scared that doesn't shake or scream. The kind that builds shrines in your head and tells you where not to look. I drove into town later that day, needing air, needing something normal. But Pine Hollow doesn't do normal anymore, if it ever did. I parked near the library, walked past the old theater, the shoe shop that hadn't sold a pair in a decade, and eventually found myself outside the church. Not for spiritual comfort. I didn't have much left in me for prayer. But someone had once told me the church was the only building in town without a mirror. I stepped inside and sat in the back pew. It was empty. The air smelled like wood polish and memory. Dust floated in beams of colored light from the stained glass, each fragment twisting shapes across the floor that didn't line up with anything real. For a moment, I felt okay. Like I could breathe without the trees pressing in. That's when I heard the voice. Luke. I turned, heart already pounding, expecting. I don't even know what. But it was just Father Merton. Older. Thinner. His black shirt faded to a deep charcoal. But those eyes sharp and probing hadn't he dulled. He looked at me like he'd been waiting, too. You saw it, he said. Not a question. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. Your mother was right to call you. You've always been close to the threshold. I blinked. The threshold. He nodded slowly. Between remembering and forgetting. Between this place and the other. The other what, I asked. He hesitated, then said something that stuck in my spine like a needle. We don't have a name for it. Because naming it gives it roots. And it's already grown too many. I told him about the trail, the cabin, the reflection. I left out the part about the smiling trees. Some things, even priests shouldn't hear. When I finished, he sat beside me and folded his hands. There are places in this world, he said, where reality frays. Pine Hollow is one of them. It's always been thin here. Some say the town was built wrong, like someone laid the foundation on a memory instead of earth. Others say it was never a town at all, just a disguise. But the forest knows. It remembers everyone who crosses its edge. And sometimes, it lets pieces of them slip through. Slip through where, I asked. He looked at me for a long time. Then said, you ever heard of a place where your memories go before you forget them, where the things you repress gather dust? The woods are full of them. I laughed, because the alternative was screaming. So what, the forest is a haunted scrapbook? No, he said. It's a mirror. And it's waking up. He gave me something before I left, a small wooden pendant carved into a shape I didn't recognize. He called it a ward, said it wouldn't protect me but might help me recognize when I was being watched. I slipped it into my pocket, half ready to throw it out the window. But I kept it. Because something deep in my bones was beginning to ache, and I didn't know how else to ease it. That night, my phone rang. No number. Just the word, unknown. I almost didn't answer. I should listen to that instinct. But I did. At first, nothing. Just static. Then a voice, low, garbled, and distant. You're in the wrong skin, it said. Then a sound like dry leaves rustling inside a throat, and the line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone pressed to my ear long after the call ended. The air in my room shifted. Grew heavier. The pendant in my pocket burned against my leg. And from the mirror above my dresser, I saw something move. Not a full body. Not even a face. Just the corner of a smile. I tore the mirror down that night. Smashed it in the driveway with a hammer until nothing reflective remained. My mom didn't ask. She just handed me a trash bag and said, put the pieces under moonlight. They forget better that way. The next few days were a blur of half sleep, cold coffee, and the sound of branches tapping against windows that weren't near any trees. I kept seeing shadows move just outside the corners of rooms. Kept hearing my name in voices that weren't mine. My phone buzzed constantly with blank texts. Just empty boxes. Sometimes, at exactly 3:33 a.m. I'd wake to find the hallway light on, flickering, humming low like a whisper you can almost make out. One night, I followed it. The light led me to the basement, a place I hadn't set foot in since I was 17. It was where Jonah and I used to hang out, where we made up dumb stories about ghosts and ancient tunnels and cursed books. Back when we thought fear was something you could outgrow. The basement was cold. Dusty. But beneath the mold and boxes, I saw a door I didn't remember. Small. Wooden. Set into the wall where a bookshelf used to be. I reached for the knob. It was warm. Too warm. And behind it, I heard music. A music box, maybe, or a lullaby, sung by someone who didn't understand the words. I opened the door. Behind it was a tunnel. Not dirt. Not concrete. Wood. Old pine. Polished. Perfect. Stretching into blackness. I stepped inside. The world shifted. The tunnel felt wrong the second I stepped in, not just because it shouldn't have been there, but because the air inside it wasn't air at all. It felt still, like water trapped in memory, like time had held its breath, and I'd walked straight into its lungs, and the worst part was how quiet it was, not a creak or groan, just the soft tick-tick-tick of something in the distance, like a clock winding down or a beetle tapping against bone, and every step I took felt like it echoed before I made it, like the sound was happening in reverse, leading me towards something that remembered me better than I remembered myself. So I walked, deeper and deeper, my hand trailing along the smooth pine walls that didn't feel carved but grown, like this place had been planted under the house a long time ago and finally decided to bloom, and after what felt like hours, or maybe no time at all, I reached the end, a small, round room with a single mirror in the center, full length, old-fashioned, its edges wrapped in thorns and something that shimmered like wet hair, and there, standing in front of it, was Jonah, or what was left of him. Same eyes, same grin, but his skin was pale and waxy like it had forgotten how to breathe, and when he turned to me, I saw myself in the mirror behind him, only I wasn't moving, my reflection just stood there, watching, its face blank and its arms too long, and that's when Jonah no, the thing in his skin spoke, and his voice sounded like it was spoken through splinters, like every word was slicing out of his throat, and he said, "You found me too late, brother," and I wanted to run, I should have run, but my feet were planted, and the mirror started to shimmer, ripple like water, and from it stepped something wearing my face, but wrong. The smile stretched too wide, the eyes glassy and hungry, and it moved with a jerky rhythm like a puppet on strings, and Jonah stepped aside and said, "He's been waiting to wear you," and the thing lunged. Fast and silent, and the last thing I saw before everything went black was my reflection slamming into me, mouth open like it wanted to swallow me whole. And when I woke up, I was in my bed, daylight pouring through the blinds, my clothes clean, my body untouched, but I knew something had changed, because when I looked in the mirror, my reflection blinked a moment too late, just like before, and when I smiled, it didn't smile back, and I knew, deep down, that I hadn't made it out, not really. That something else had crawled into my skin and left me behind in that tunnel, and the worst part is no one noticed. My mom greeted me like nothing happened, the neighbors waved, the forest stayed still, but I see the signs now, how my shadow doesn't always follow me, how I speak and hear the words a second later in a voice not quite my own, and sometimes I dream of a forest made of mirrors, of people stitched from bark and memory, of laughter without mouths, and I know I'm still there, trapped behind the glass, screaming in silence while this thing walks around wearing my name, and every time I try to tell someone, the words fall apart in my throat like rotting leaves, so I write this now, in the hope someone finds it, someone who remembers me, the real me. Because the pines remember everything, and if you ever hear your name in the trees, run.